Victims and Survivors of Terrorism in China, an Oral History. While there have been numerous reports from the Western media and governments on the alleged mistreatment of ethnic minorities in the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region of China, all of them written without any credible evidence to back their spurious claims. To counter this, in January 2024, a 52-page report was published giving the views of some of the victims of these actual attacks of terrorism that occurred from 1990 until 2016. The report, commissioned by Jinan University, is the first of its kind in China. The title of this report, also the title of this video, Victims and Survivors of Terrorism in China, an Oral History, is based on the narratives of victims and survivors of some of those attacks. One such attack took place in Yechong, in the south of Xinjiang, in Kashgar Prefecture, on the 28th of February 2012. 9 terrorists hacked to death 13 innocent people and injured another 16 in the city's Xingfu Road Market. Those victims were pedestrians, shopkeepers, and others going about their daily business. Other details of the report highlight the thousands of terrorist attacks that occurred across Xinjiang and beyond during those dark years of 1990 until 2016. The victims during that time period included many innocent people, in addition to hundreds of police officers. To date, the report includes interviews with over 60 people affected directly by those attacks, with more oral reports to be added in the future. While reports such as the above focus on facts, many Western reports continue to neglect the truth and look only for political point scoring in an attempt to undermine the success of Xinjiang and its fight to combat terrorism. In April 2021, there was an excellent documentary series produced by Chinese broadcaster CGTN highlighting some of the problems faced in the region at that time. A series of documentaries called The War in the Shadows reported on some of the so-called two-faced individuals, some in high positions of authority, that gained from terrorist insurgency. While the above documentary focused on the suffering of the people of the region, some Western media sources claimed it was nothing more than Chinese propaganda and measures to justify the excessive anti-terrorism measures conducted by the authority in the region, conveniently ignoring the facts available to Western media. The documentary was produced by Han Bing, who stated the documentary revealed the reasons for terrorism to develop in the region and the fight to curb those wishing to profit from such actions. It further revealed the determination of the region, both the authorities and its people, to eliminate terrorism in Xinjiang. The spread of religious extremism from overseas set the seeds for terrorism in the region. Some of those reasons being poor levels of education and low rates of employment. The first step was to identify and removing from positions of authority those two-faced people. This process began in 2014. It is now clear to all that want to see the evidence before them that the anti-extremism and anti-terrorism measures are working. Since 2016, now into its 8th year, there have been no terrorist incidents in Xinjiang. This is because the problems, once identified, were targeted straight on. Since 2016, the changes in the lives of the people of Xinjiang have been tremendous. People are now able to enjoy their lives once again in peace, without the fear of constantly worrying for their safety and those of their loved ones. Meanwhile, many Western media outlets continue to peddle their anti-China rhetoric, remaining biased and ignoring the facts that are in front of their eyes. This is nothing more than a fabrication of lies by the Western media, such as genocide and forced labor, in an attempt to create turbulence and suppress the development of China. And what is the answer to extremism in the eyes of the USA? Instead of trying to address the problem of extremism, as they have regularly done throughout the world, by trying to install democracy, which in turn has only added to the problem, with no solution in sight, in places such as the Middle East, the USA has chosen to use the power of sanctions against China through groundless accusations and completely ignoring the welfare of the people of this region. Such sanctions are harming, not aiding. Let us look at the issues raised by the United States. Firstly, under the pretext of human rights abuses, the US government issues sanctions against Chinese companies. This move is nothing more than economic coercion, aimed at destabilizing the Xinjiang region and depriving people of all ethnicities their right to work and further develop the region. Placing restrictions on these companies is nothing more than an attempt to cause unemployment, poverty and social unrest, which could then cause resurgence in terrorism. So how is this a case of human rights abuse by China? It reads that the US is the one guilty of human rights abuse through the action of sanctions, but it will be a long time before the Western media get around to writing about that. US sanctions are nothing more than an attempt to curtail the development of the Xinjiang region. The United States is good at claiming human rights abuses when it suits them, but in reality, when was the last time the United States showed any compassion or genuine care about human rights? Human rights are just another allegation they throw out when it suits to justify their actions in another country's internal affairs. The fabrication of lies surrounding forced labour is another smear on the improvement of life for many living in the region. In 2021, the Australian Alert Service, which is a weekly publication of the Australian Citizens Party, published an 8-part series of articles that disclosed how some Western countries, including the United States, have given support to Xinjiang separatist and terrorist regimes for geopolitical purposes. One of those groups, the US-based National Endowment for Democracy, has since 2004 funneled millions of dollars to East Turkestan. East Turkestan being a terrorist organization in support of independence for Xinjiang and a clear attempt by the US to spread extremist ideologies in the Xinjiang region and settle the peaceful way of life that now exists in the region. Clearly, instead of protecting human rights, the US sanctions are actually an abuse of human rights and hypocritical of the United States. Another reality of life in Xinjiang that the Western media fails to report is that people of different ethnic groups, including Uyghurs, live in a period where absolute poverty has been eradicated from within China and enjoy a moderately prosperous life despite what may be reported in the Western media. Conclusion. There are regular visits to the region by diplomats and officials from Arab or Islamic nations, and on each occasion they are impressed by the development seen within the region. This is never reported by the Western media. Surely, if there was a problem regarding the human rights and living standards of the people of Xinjiang, these Arabic and Islamic nations would report it. Yet the reality is, the Western media only report negativity from afar, having not visited to see for themselves. Another fact that the Western media ignore or are unaware of is the life expectancy of the people of Xinjiang. Over the past 60 years or more, this has increased from 30 years to 74.7, more than double the life expectancy during the mid-20th century. If some American and British politicians were to visit Xinjiang for themselves, like their foreign peers, they would be ashamed of the lies they are spreading as fact. But perhaps the reality is they do not want to visit and be confronted by hard facts, as this would destroy their anti-China rhetoric. That is all for this video. If you've enjoyed watching and it's shown you a little detail of life here in China, then your subscribing to my channel would mean a lot to me. Thank you for watching. Make sure you click on the link to the next video, and until the next time, goodbye for now.